See you. You're going to scooch in. Hi, guys. You're still not on Instagram. You're on Facebook. Hello. Here we are live. I announced earlier this morning. I had a couple special guests joining me. And these are both my sisters. This is my sister by blood, Anna Penick, and this is my sister from another mister, Justine Campbell. You guys probably seen them. You might even already follow them. And Facebook, it looks like we're live as well. So we're trying to, here.
Can you face it this way?
We're going to, there we go.
Oh my gosh. She's like in socks.
So we are here because we wanted to talk to you. You got to scoot over a little bit. Talk to you about nutrition. And both of these women are nutritionists. Justine actually is a registered dietitian and then went back to school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, right?
Yes.
When did you finish?
2011.
Okay. So she wanted to go through conventional training to just get that background and then went back to school through the same program that I went through as well as my sister to become a natural practitioner and approach nutrition from a holistic perspective. And this is my sister, Anna Penick. You guys probably know her fairly well at this point. She's also a nutritional therapy practitioner and actually the one that inspired me, both of us, yeah, to get into this field of health. And I've shared this story before, that Anna was the one that came to our house and started throwing my Cheez-Its away and really made my husband really mad. Yeah. And she was telling us all these things that we needed to do differently. And it's hard to listen to your little sister sometimes and know that she's right, but that just kind of started propelling us into this idea of cleaning up our diet. And then, of course, inspired me to go back to school, inspired Justine to go pursue the nutritional therapy certification. So today we want to talk about what the common questions that we get from all of you on a regular basis are. So I would love you guys, as we're chatting here, if you think of questions, let me know, because we'll go ahead and answer your questions. We have a few questions that people have asked us already that we're going to go ahead and answer, but as we see questions come in.
Don't know that one. I'm like not familiar with that.
Yeah, Megan, we're not exactly sure what that is. I don't even know what that is. Awesome. Andrea's starting NTP on Monday. That's so cool.
That's really cool. You'll love it. It will change your life.
Really good program. You guys scooch over. You can't see one on Instagram. Okay, so we're going to start with, I want Justine to just share a little bit about what she does. Anna's going to do the same. And actually, let me start with you, Anna. I want you to answer this question. So one of the most common questions that we get is, what's the most misunderstood food or nutrient and why? What would you say is the most misunderstood food?
Butter. So nutrient being fat, food being butter. Fat is commonly looked upon as fat. We're going to get fat if we eat fat. We're going to get heart disease if we eat too much fat, and where the obesity epidemic comes from. And hi, Griffin. Familiar face. Don't know anybody else. So I think that is something that a lot of people are touching more upon. A lot of people are grasping that real butter is better. But we're hearing a lot of cardiovascular surgeons even now coming out saying that the buildup of plaque in the arteries is actually from a consumption of too many carbohydrates. Carbohydrates breaking down into our body as sugar, excess sugar being stored as fat. So the fat, the good fats like real butter, grass-fed beef, egg yolks, fatty fishes, that is actually used as energy. So we actually lose weight because the more energy we're consuming through fat, we can burn that easier. So there's a great book called Eat Fat, Lose Fat by Mary Penick. And there's also a really great book called Why We Get Fat by, I have it right here, really Gary Taubes. So Gary Taubes, that's a really, really good one, Why We Get Fat. So the biggest misconception is that when we eat too much fat, we are at risk for degenerative diseases like obesity and heart disease. But really the fat that we eat, and when I was in practice, all of my clients who had high cholesterol levels, who were morbidly obese and had heart disease, I would put them on an 80% saturated fat diet. So more grass-fed beef, more butter, more egg yolks, I would take out the carbohydrates and simple sugars, and their cholesterol levels would fall drastically. They were no longer showing markers for cardiovascular, heart disease, MIs, or heart attacks. And so think of the healthy fats as energy so that you can burn those. And think of carbohydrates too. It's also quick energy, but the more sugars, it's what's creating obesity and heart disease is excess sugar. Excess sugar is stored as fat, not fat.
Yeah. And I always see Johanna is sharing that avocado, coconut oil, those are great fats, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So Justine specializes, I'll let you explain a little bit, but in fertility health. And so I want her to explain what her specialty is, but also tell us when we're talking about preconception, labor delivery, well, pregnancy, labor delivery, and postpartum, what role does fat play in that? And how important is it?
Fat is so important. In fact, it's one of the nutrients that I always explain to people, carb, protein, fat, and kind of how to balance meals. And just in how you ended talking about sugar being such a problem, infertility is such a problem. And there's so many different reasons, many of which, the majority of which are affected by our diet and lifestyle. So we are able to do something about it. And one of the issues that we know is that insulin is very problematic to all kinds of things, our cardiovascular health, but specifically to our fertility health. And so keeping the blood sugar stable is really, really important, and something that I teach in my preconception prep course by balancing with nutrients. And fat is one of those nutrients where what I teach is it's unlimited. As long as you're eating healthy fats, eat until your heart's content, because I'm sure you've seen with clients as well, with other issues, it's like the weight just starts falling off. If weight is an issue, if you need to gain weight, if fertility is an issue because of being underweight, that's also a problem. But the big thing I want to focus on here is blood sugar. So,
Hi, Papa Ocean.
Hi, Steve.
Oh, hi, Steve. But we want to keep insulin down in the system, okay? So balancing your meals with healthy fat is incredibly important. Oh, she's going to want her lawless. Also, another piece that with fertility health, pregnancy, postpartum, is keeping, hi, my love.
This is Presley, by the way.
Yeah.
Presley was made of butter and eggs and avocado.
And she's mad right now. So another thing is that healthy hormones, we need fat for healthy, balanced hormones. I'm going to actually set her on the ground because she likes to be free.
There you go, sisters. Oh, maybe not.
Sorry, guys.
That's what this is. They're used to this by now.
So for healthy hormones, you need fatty acids and amino acids. Here, why don't we switch?
Okay, so Justine's going to come back in after Sweet Presley gets calmed down. And basically what she's explaining is the fact that babies, I mean, in the simplest of terms, babies are made from fat. And your sex hormones are made from fat. And so when we talk about using fat as a nutrient and increasing the amount of fat that we eat in our diet, for people dealing with infertility issues or wanting to really develop healthy babies and have healthy postpartum health, fat is one of the most important nutrients that you can eat. So Anna, you talked a little bit about this, but I think a lot of people, we talk about fat, and then a lot of people say, okay, well, are carbohydrates bad? So we know fat is good, healthy sources of fat coming from wild and pastured animals, avocado, coconut oil, things like that. But so are carbohydrates bad for us?
Carbohydrates are not bad. We actually need carbohydrates, especially growing children and athletes. So growing children require a lot more carbs. So I see a common misconception is that people who are more paleo or who are grain-free or following a really strict high-fat diet, ketogenic diet, which is all those are really great options, children actually require more carbs. So they're actually going to need more vegetables, more healthy, properly prepared grains. And then an athlete as well is going to require more carbs for fuel. So I think that carbs are 100% fine. They should be a part of our diet. But when we're consuming too many carbs, they break down into our body as sugar, and that's when excess sugar is stored as fat. We're just focusing around fat, but not only that, creating diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, different cancers. So sugars feed disease. And so when we're consuming, too many carbohydrates coming from grains or coming from actual more vegetables and fruits. So I think that a vegetarian can be 100% totally healthy. I think there's a really strict way that you have to do it in order to get enough fats and proteins. But the common meal, for example, of having just veggies and grains and fruit, that's too many carbohydrates. So you're getting loads of insulin dumped into your bloodstream, which can create these different diseases. So balancing out carbs, all carbs should be combined with the fat to slow down the insulin to slow down your pancreas releasing that insulin so that your blood sugar doesn't spike. So when we have, rice, or when we have sweet potatoes, or when we have a vegetable, we always make sure we add coconut oil or butter on it so it slows that release of blood sugar.
That's awesome. So when we're talking about carbs, I think Justine's coming back in. Presley's happy for a moment. But it's also important to understand, Anna mentioned cancer, that we all, and you probably have been following me for a while, I do educate that, excess carbohydrates can trigger the growth of cancer cells. But when we talk about fertility, and Anna touched on this briefly, and Justine had already mentioned insulin is a concern. So Justine, tell us why carbohydrates would be a concern when we're talking about excess carbohydrates, when we're talking about fertility health.
Yeah, so back to the issue with insulin. I kind of think of insulin as almost like sandpaper on your blood vessels. It also can affect our eggs in that really, really important phase about 3 to 4 months before you ovulate, which is that kind of that really, really important time in preparing and protecting your eggs, okay? Because we know that so many different things, the food that we eat, the chemicals in our environment, all those things affect the health of our eggs. So insulin is one of those things that we want to keep at a nice balanced level. And so on the topic of carbohydrates, what was your question specifically?
Just how would carbs negatively affect fertility, which you kind of touched on.
Right, so the insulin would be the big thing. Did you talk about the positive of carbs at all? Or what? Did you talk about the positive? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the keto diet is a really popular thing right now, the super low carbohydrate diet. I definitely feel like the ketogenic diet has a place for certain types of people. I don't think it's for everybody. Mm-hmm. And specifically for women who are looking to conceive, the thyroid plays a really, really important role in fertility health. And when the thyroid does not have enough carbohydrates, it can be problematic. Your guys' mentor, Kim Schutte, was a big believer in making sure that women who were preparing for conception had enough healthy carbohydrates, primarily from vegetables, some fruit, and then properly prepared grains to help support healthy thyroid function. Now, what I'm talking about, carbohydrate, is still considered low carbohydrate, especially in our Western world. So around 100 to even 120 grams of carbohydrates is what I'm talking about, which that's still low carbohydrate, but it's not keto. So I would just say be careful if that's the preconception phase, even through postpartum, keeping the carbohydrates low and the sources very clean and vegetable based. But then being careful to not go too low, because that can definitely be problematic.
So you mentioned, we're talking about serving portions of serving size when we talk about carbohydrates. So Anna, should we count calories? When if you were working with a client and let's say they wanted to lose weight, or they just wanted to get healthier, they wanted to maybe even gain weight, should they be counting calories, or is there something else they should be focusing on?
No, I think calorie counting is a thing of the past. It's not about, if I counted my calories, I would eat
like a 10,000 a day.
I mean, an ungodly amount
Yeah.
of calories. It's not about calories. It's about the quality of food you're eating. Now, I think that, again, it's for, what do you call the people that do the workout? Like they need to count muscle.
Like bodybuilders.
We do it as
Bodybuilders.
well. We just forgot.
Yeah.
We're bodybuilders.
We haven't worked out
Used to be
this morning at all. I haven't worked out in like 10 years. And I've
look at
never
her
been so
abs.
skinny in my life. No, so it's not about skinny and fat, and it's not about calorie counting. It's about eating good quality, healthy food. So no, I don't think calories need to be counted unless, again, you're bodybuilding and you really want a lot of muscle. So again, quality food, not necessarily calories, because you could be eating thousands and thousands of calories and still not have to worry about being overweight
If you're eating the right calories.
if you're eating the right calories.
And the thing about calories is that you hear like 1,500 or 1,800 or 2,000. It's like, okay, that might be an appropriate amount of calories for you or for me, but not for, her and him and her. I mean, our bodies are so, I swear, she's usually so content and not when we're alive. So my take on it is it's really important to. What is happening? Getting tears? Maybe. The mindful eating is so important. Being aware of how food makes you feel, and
Pause. Well, she'll be back. But mindful eating, just being aware of what you're consuming, and I think, again, like Justine said, there's certain people are going to be able to digest and absorb certain nutrients feeling well on a certain amount of calories. Anna and I can eat a lot of calories in a day, and because we're eating the right calories and like what we talked about in the very beginning, we're eating a lot of fat. Your body uses fat in a million different ways. So the moral of the story is don't count calories, count the nutrition facts, and read. My kids have been educated now that they read that you're going to be reading the label to see what the ingredients are, not the nutrition facts. Now, I do tell my kids to read the sugar, how much sugar is in there, so they know what to look for that, but I've never taught them to look at calories. In fact, I've never even told them about the fat content. They don't even know to look at that portion on the nutrition facts label. They look at the sugar and they read the ingredients. He is so handsome. This is my nephew, West. So another question, Anna, somebody wrote in here is thoughts on the vegan diet. What are your thoughts? Because I know there are some people that follow that and they're fairly health minded. But what's your opinion on the vegan diet?
You can go ask your daddy. The vegan diet is way too restrictive. Again, like I said, vegetarians, you can totally be a vegetarian and be healthy. It's just if you eat lots of eggs and lots of butter, and if you're open to eating some wild fish, that would be great. If not, again, you can still be a healthy vegetarian. Veganism, absolutely not. I think that the vegan diet is a great diet for cleansing. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride wrote a very, really well-read article. My nanny was not able to make it this morning, clearly. Wrote a great article on cleansing versus feeding. So cleansing versus feeding, we're not feeding ourselves, we're not feeding our bodies on the vegan diet. It's a great cleanse, and that's why a lot of vegans feel great for the first little while that they're on the vegan diet. And then over time, I saw a lot of vegans who came into me, chronic fatigue, arthritis, diabetes, and a lot of different degenerative health ailments from starving their bodies so long of those nutrients. So the vegan diet is wonderful for cleansing. I don't recommend it any more than 90 days, honestly. And I do recommend the vegan diet for a certain amount of time just to give your body that overall cleanse. But it's not sustainable. It's not going to feed your cells the nutrients it needs to sustain health. And look, people can do it much longer than that, the vegan diet, and feel great. But eventually it starts taking a toll. And I would just see the product of that in my practice. So a great article, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, cleansing versus feeding. And then another great book by Larry Keith is called The Vegetarian Myth. That, again, I am not anti-vegetarian. I don't recommend it, but I'm not anti. I think that you can be a healthy vegetarian. But in that book, she covers a lot on the vegan diet.
And Justine, if she was able to be in here, she would also share with you that when we're talking about preconception health and getting your body ready to have a healthy baby and carrying a healthy baby, you absolutely need fat. And you can't get enough fat on a vegan diet because that fat, and Anna, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
Bioavailability. So,
animal sources.
So the only sources that are actually bioavailable are going to be from animal sources. You cannot get vitamin A from carrots. It's beta carotene. So that the way that your body breaks down vitamin A, it's only available through animal protein. Carrots are great, and coconut oil is great, and avocados are great, but you cannot get bioavailable vitamins A, D, E, and K unless it's sourced from animal protein. And at the different stages, a lot of people don't know this. We're not educated. Our doctors don't educate us on the growth and development in utero, but the different stages in utero, your babies, you are literally making a baby from scratch. You have the ability to create the healthiest, robust child. And different weeks, different months, different trimesters during pregnancy in utero, you're either creating good vision for the baby or you're creating bad vision. You're creating so that your child never has to wear braces, so that your child never has to wear glasses. That all happens in utero. And so if you're not getting the nutrients for good eyesight, for good brain health, for good skin, for good teeth. So what makes healthy teeth, right? Vitamin D, vitamin K. Then your child is going to be more susceptible to those issues once they're born. So in utero, if you are not eating the nutrients required for development through childhood, your child can have a harder time. Can you go back and correct that? Absolutely. Supplementation, getting them started on good, clean, healthy foods that are from animal fats. But I think that we so commonly forget that in utero is a very important time to feed our body nutrition. Now, kids are resilient. It usually does not hit them until later on in life because our bodies have been designed so well, and children are so resilient that these things are usually later on in life that happen.
Yeah, that's so true. And so I think that answers, looks like Linda had a question, what's the number one fat above all? And we would probably say a fat source that's coming from an organic, healthy raised animal like butter.
But I would even say, because dairy, some people can't do dairy. So I would even say eggs or caviar, good fatty fish.
Yeah, wild seafood.
Grass-fed beef. But, a lot of people don't do well on dairy, and a lot of people shouldn't do dairy for a while they're healing, So I think that ghee maybe would be a better option than butter for people who can't tolerate butter. But yeah, I think that eggs and ghee.
And Samantha actually asked, how do you feel about dairy? And so our stance on dairy is, first of all, any dairy that you consume should always be raw, not pasteurized. Even the organic, lightly pasteurized milk, it's not going to be healing. It's actually a food that can trigger more inflammation, more damage. So in California, we're fortunate to have access to raw dairy. Some states do have access to raw dairy as well. But we believe in only consuming raw dairy or cultured dairy. So cheese, sometimes you can't find totally raw cheese, but you can find cheese that's been cultured. And like Anna said, I think a lot of times when we deal with people who we've been working with or helping, and they've walked through some sort of disease or illness, they actually have to remove dairy for some time because it can trigger inflammation when they're not absorbing it and digesting it well. Katie's asking, Anna, how much of our mental health is impacted by our nutrition and gut health?
Yeah, so our mental health, all of our neurotransmitters are housed in our gut. All of our serotonin, which are feel-good chemicals, are housed in our gut. So if we have leaky gut, if what we're breaking down in our body food-wise, fat, protein, carbs, is being undigested, slipping through the microvilli, they're not going to get into the cells they need to go. So it's incredibly impactful in your emotional health. You're going to have low serotonin, low neurotransmitters, which can create a fog over the brain and create anxiety and depression. So Hippocrates, father of modern medicine, said all diseases begin in the gut. And that's ever so true. And before pharma came out, pharmaceutical industry, our psychiatrists would always look to the gut. So people who had schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression, the psychiatrist would heal the gut. They would never prescribe medication. And we know there's a root cause to every disease. So I think that, nutrition plays a huge role, but we can be eating all the healthy food and all the healthy fats to create healthy neurotransmitters and serotonin levels. But we also have to work on detoxing the junk that we have in our body and rehealing and resealing our microbiome and the microvilli that can break down and gather the nutrients. And so a lot of people will be eating healthy and they feel a whole lot better, but then they still have, eating healthy is not going to heal the gut. It's going to stop from more toxins coming in. So you want to make sure you're working close with a practitioner who is trained to heal and seal your digestive system.
So Sarah is asking, Justine, is the keto diet safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding?
I personally don't like the keto diet. You need carbohydrates.
There's no yes.
And I think a big, so I kind of touched on that whole mindful eating before baby's going nuts. And most women that I know and work with tend towards carbohydrates, wanting more carbohydrates during their pregnancy, especially in the first trimester. And yes, some people are like, oh, this means I can eat ice cream and all this kind of stuff. No, you still want to focus on getting in healthy whole food carbohydrates because your body is asking for that. And just going by the mindful approach to eating, if your body is really wanting a nutrient like that, or if you're craving salt or you're craving fat, or what are other things? Even a lot of people,
donuts, cinnamon rolls,
ice cream,
Lucky Charms. Let me name a few. Corn dogs.
Corn dogs. That was
that's the thing.
Anyway, just going off of that, it's like most people's bodies say, I need carbohydrates. And then when we look down to more of a hormonal level, like I said, the thyroid, in order to not be, your thyroid, if it's not getting enough of the nutrients that it needs, specifically hormones to feed those thyroid hormones, then it's going to essentially down-regulate, and it's going to put you into the starvation mode. It's not going to function appropriately, and we need those strong hormones to even just hold on to a pregnancy. So I absolutely think that incorporating carbohydrates specifically, I'm not talking about like cakes and pies and even bread. If your body doesn't do well with bread, I'm not even talking about that, but lots of vegetables, even starchier vegetables like sweet potatoes, adding that in, some nutrient-dense fruits, and then properly prepared grains if your body tolerates those. So I don't think that keto is appropriate for even preconception. So definitely not during pregnancy or breastfeeding. And a lot of breastfeeding moms that I talk to, they need more carbohydrates. And the sad thing is what I see is that the carbohydrates, the moms want to diet to lose weight, which is a lot of one of the big reasons that people want to do the ketogenic diet is for weight loss, because it's like that, right? But what happens to your milk supply? A lot of times your body needs that extra adipose tissue. I want to say, I don't know why, but it makes sense. You need more nutrients postpartum to make up for what is lost during pregnancy. In fact, we know that the early weeks of breastfeeding specifically is one of the most nutrient demanding times of your entire life, even more so than pregnancy. And carbohydrates play a big role in that. So I would say no on that.
Yeah. So speaking of thyroid, Linda's asking, and we'll do one more question after this. Linda's asking about gluten-free. And I assume she's wondering, should she be gluten-free if she has hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's?
Yes.
So your thyroid interacts with the protein gluten, right? And it recognizes it, and
it's an autoimmune, so
it sees the gluten molecule as, it looks very similar to oh, now I'm totally losing my train of thought. Thyroid hormone?
No, so Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, I didn't see the question.
Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, which is
Right. So that's an autoimmune condition. So your body is going to, so your thyroid is actually attacking itself with an autoimmune condition, whatever the autoimmune condition is. So it recognizes that gluten is a foreign protein that starts attacking itself. So your body senses that as an enemy. So it starts just like your thyroid is attacking itself. It's an unrecognized protein that starts attacking the body. So all gluten, actually the coffee bean is a mirror image of gluten, even decaf. And so I have a lot of my people stop caffeine as well as chocolate. So those things can play a huge role in all the good things.
It's so sad. Okay, so last question, and I think this is a good one, especially considering the trend. Somebody was asking, what do we think about celery juice and doing the big craze on celery juice? Do you guys know?
I have only briefly looked into it, and some of the people that I follow, their opinion on it is just like,
it's not bad, not good.
And I think,
not bad, not amazing kind of
right.
thing.
It's like, I don't know. I'm so big on this mindful eating. If you do that and it makes you feel really good, and it's something that brings you joy and you feel good doing it, I don't think it's going to hurt you at all, as long as you're eating real food outside of that. But all of the claims with celery, I don't know if you guys have heard some of the claims with celery juice. It's pretty intense, like what people are claiming. And it's really one specific guy. I don't remember his name, but there's like,
he's a medical medium or something.
Yes, that like talks about all these different things. So again, for me, if it brings you joy and you feel really good doing it, I would say one thing: don't you dare juice conventional non-organic celery. It is
you're just drinking a cup of pesticides.
Yes, it has that. It is the number one. It contains the highest amount of pesticides out of all of the fruits and vegetables. It is the dirtiest in the dirty dozen, I think, year after year, because it's mostly water. So if you, that would be like going against all things health. So if you're doing that, I would say the biggest thing is to make sure that it's organic.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's the stance that I've taken is it, people got super excited about this idea of celery juice and it became trendy, and we were kind of over here going, well, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It can be healthy, but there's also a lot of other pieces to help you become healthy. And most people don't drink enough water during the day because celery juice is mostly water.
Right.
That's helping people stay hydrated. So I agree. I think that I'm not on any side of the fence, but like Justine said, if you're feeling well doing it, as long as it's organic, it's fine. But if you're not doing it, don't feel like you have to rush into starting doing it, because it's not going to make or break your health situation.
Right. And
I always heard the darker green vegetables are healthier.
Right.
So I would
juice.
To juice, but I don't think there's anything wrong with juicing celery juice.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's going to cure your diabetes or heart disease.
Yeah. And it's like, I think if you've been following any of us, specifically Season, for a while, you know that if there's a fad that comes out, it's a fad for a reason. Like, it's usually very short-lived. And what we're always going to go back to is, how does that stand up against like traditional health, traditional cultures? And is it nourishing our body? And celery juice, I mean,
it's not any nutrients in it.
Like spinach, if that was the big fad of juicing, like maybe more so. There's a ton of nutrients in that, but
yeah. Cool. Well, that was fun. Be fun if we could
Sorry
do
about
this
the crying baby.
Oh, that's, you know what? Listen,
drooling on that.
They've seen
coconut water.
They've seen worse. They have. So if you guys want to find these ladies and follow them and just continue to learn more from them, you can find Anna at Instagram. I tagged her on Facebook, but she doesn't have a professional Facebook page anymore, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so find Anna Penick. She's tagged here on Facebook, and that's easy. And on Instagram at Anna Penick. And then Justine is on Instagram as, are you Alice?
JustineCampbell.co.
JustineCampbell.co. So I'll do a story after this and just tag them in it so you guys can find them, because they do share a lot of wisdom. And for those of you on Facebook, I already did tag them. And keep an eye out. Justine's going to be coming out with a course about healthy preconception, fertility. So as long as you're following her, you'll get notified about all of that as well. So thank you guys for joining. Thanks for the great questions. We'll see you guys later. Bye.